Today, I want to slow things down and talk about history. Not history from books or classrooms, but history that still lives around us. As I ride through these streets, I'm reminded that Portugal carries centuries of stories beneath everyday life. Empires were imagined here, routes were planned, decisions were made that shaped oceans, continents, and cultures. Many of those decisions were quiet. They were written on paper, not fought on battlefields. Yet their impact reached the entire world. Today, we will take a quiet walk through one of those moments. In the history of Portugal, it is a story that helped change the world. As I walk through these streets today, everything feels familiar. The buildings, the roads, the rhythm of daily life. But more than 500 years ago, Portugal stood at the center of a world that was still unknown. In the late 15th century, Europe was changing. New ships were being built, new navigation tools were being used, and new ambitions were forming. European kingdoms wanted access to gold, spices, and trade. Overland routes to Asia were dangerous and expensive. A sea route promised wealth and power. At that time, Portugal was ruled by King João II. He is also known as João II, or John II. He was often called the Perfect Prince. He was careful, intelligent, and strategic. King João believed Portugal's future was at sea. He invested in navigation, exploration, and science. He strengthened royal control over voyages, and he reduced the power of the nobility. Under his rule, Portuguese sailors explored much of the African coast. They searched for gold and spices, but most of all, they searched for a sea route to India. At the same time, Spain was also expanding. Spain was Portugal's powerful neighbor and rival. In 1492, Christopher Columbus sailed west under the Spanish crown. He reached the Americas. Although he believed he had reached Asia, his voyage revealed lands unknown to Europeans. This discovery created immediate tension. Portugal and Spain both wanted control over new lands. Earlier agreements were no longer enough. The risk of conflict was real. To avoid war, Portugal and Spain chose diplomacy. In 1494, they signed an agreement known as the Treaty of Tordesillas. The treaty was supported by the Catholic Church, which held great power in Europe at the time. An imaginary line was drawn across the Atlantic Ocean. The line ran from north to south. Everything east of the line would belong to Portugal. Everything west of the line would belong to Spain. For Portugal, this was a major success. King João II demanded that the line be placed far to the west. At the time, no one knew exactly what lands lay beyond the ocean. Maps were incomplete. Longitude could not be measured accurately. Many coastlines were only guesses. Still, this single line would shape world history. The treaty was signed in the town of Tordesillas, in Spain. Portugal was represented by Rui de Sousa, João de Sousa, and Aires de Almada. Spain was represented by Enrique Enriquez, Gautier de Cardenas, and Rodrigo Maldonado. Spain's rulers were King Ferdinand II of Aragon and Queen Isabella I of Castile. Together, they divided lands they had never seen. Because of the treaty, Portugal gained control over key regions in Africa and Asia. In 1488, Bartholomew Diaz rounded the Cape of Good Hope. This proved that the Atlantic and Indian Oceans were connected. In 1498, Vasco da Gama reached India by sea. This opened a direct route between Europe and Asia. Over the next decades, Portugal built a global trading network. In 1510, Portugal captured Goa in India. In 1511, it took control of Malacca in Southeast Asia. In 1557, Portugal established a permanent presence in Macau. These places became major trade centers. They connected Europe with Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. One of the most important consequences of the treaty came in 1500. That year, Pedro Alvarez Cabral reached the coast of what is now Brazil. Brazil lay east of the treaty line. Because of this, Brazil became Portuguese territory. This is why Brazil speaks Portuguese today. Most of the rest of South America speaks Spanish. Spain expanded across large parts of the Americas. Spanish explorers reached regions that are now Mexico and Peru. They built a vast empire in the New World. Over time, the Treaty of Tordesillas lost its power. Other European nations rejected it. England, France, and the Netherlands began their own explorations. Still, for nearly a century, the treaty shaped the balance of power between Portugal and Spain. It allowed Portugal to build a maritime empire that stretched across several continents. All of this began with negotiation, not war. A single line on a map changed the fate of millions of people. Today, the legacy of that treaty is still visible. Portugal maintains strong ties with Brazil, Angola, Mozambique, and Cape Verde. These countries share language, culture, and history. Portugal and Spain, once rivals, are now partners within the European Union. They share borders, trade, and cooperation. As I continue walking through these streets, it is clear that history is never truly gone. Languages, borders, and cultures were shaped by decisions made centuries ago. The Treaty of Tordesillas reminds us that history is written not only by explorers at sea, but also by quiet agreements signed behind closed doors. History often feels distant, but its effects are still around us. Every street and every city carries hidden stories. As this ride comes to an end, remember that the past still shapes the present. In the next video, we will explore another chapter from Portugal's history. Another quiet moment that helped shape the world. Thank you for taking this ride through history with me.